She had been waiting in that hallway for 2 hours before the session even began. Rosa Menendez, 67 years old, a former seamstress whose hands had been stiffened by arthritis for the last decade, sat on a wooden bench outside Courtroom 4 with a plastic shopping bag on her lap containing every document she owned that related to this case. Utility bills, a handwritten ledger of payments, 3 years of receipts organized by month in rubber-banded bundles, and a photograph of the small apartment she had lived in for 11 years before the letter came. The letter that told her she was being sued for damages she had never caused, by a man she had never wronged, for an amount that would take her 14 months of Social Security income to pay. She had ironed her blouse that morning. She had taken 2 buses to get here. She was ready to tell the truth and trust that it would be enough. She had no way of knowing that the man suing her was already inside, already loud, and already dismantling whatever patience Courtroom 4 had left. His name was Victor Prahl, 46, property investor, the kind of man who described himself at dinner parties as an entrepreneur and expected the word to do a lot of heavy lifting. He wore a quarter-zip pullover that probably cost $200 and the expression of someone who had been inconvenienced by existing in the same legal system as other people. He had been arguing with the clerk for 6 minutes before Judge Frank Caprio entered the room. He had already referred to the court schedule as a joke, told the officer near the door that he didn't have all day, and made a remark about the parking situation outside that nobody had asked for and everyone had heard. If you've ever watched someone walk straight toward their own destruction without knowing it, stay right here, because you are about to see it happen in real time. Leave a comment below with the word "watch" if you already know where this is going, and subscribe, because Judge Caprio does not need a gavel to make a man feel the full weight of what he has done. He only needs the truth. Judge Caprio entered at 9:22. The room settled, the way rooms always settle when he walks in, not from fear, but from something more like gravity, the natural quieting of a space around a presence that commands it without demanding it. He took his seat, adjusted his glasses, and opened the file. He had read it already. He always reads the files already. He looked briefly at Victor Prahl, then briefly at the empty seat where Rosa Menendez had not yet been called from the hallway, and he said calmly, "Let's bring in Ms. Menendez." Victor Prahl exhaled audibly. "Finally," he muttered. Not quietly enough. The judge looked at him, just looked at him, did not speak. The 2 seconds of eye contact that followed were the most expensive 2 seconds Victor Prahl had experienced all year, though he didn't know that yet. Rosa came in carrying her plastic bag. She moved carefully, the way people with painful joints move in unfamiliar spaces, deliberate, unhurried, conserving. She wore her ironed blouse and her good shoes, and she nodded respectfully at the bench as she took her place. She looked like someone's grandmother. She looked like someone who had worked her entire life with her hands and asked very little of the world in return. She looked like the last person on earth who should be standing in a courtroom defending herself against anything. Victor Prahl looked at his phone. The case, on the surface, was a property damage claim. Prahl alleged that Rosa, upon vacating the apartment she had rented from him for 11 years, had left the unit in a condition requiring $8,000 in repairs. He had photographs, he had contractor estimates, he had a binder. He placed the binder on the table in front of him with the satisfaction of a man who believes paper volume equals moral authority. Rosa had her rubber-banded receipts, she had her handwritten ledger, and she had 11 years of documented, quiet, unimpeachable tenancy that she was about to lay out 1 month at a time if she had to. Judge Caprio began with Prahl. Standard questions, delivered with customary gentleness. When did Ms. Menendez vacate? What was the condition of the unit? Were there prior inspections? Prahl answered smoothly, the way people answer when they have rehearsed. He used words like unfortunately and regrettably that were doing the work of emotions he didn't actually feel. He gestured at his binder twice without being asked to, then the judge turned to Rosa. She opened her bag. She spoke in careful, accented English, pausing occasionally to find the right word, never losing the thread. She explained that she had lived in the apartment for 11 years and had never once received a complaint about the unit's condition. She explained that she had requested repairs in writing on 4 occasions and received responses on none of them. She explained that she had taken photographs on the day she left. Her daughter had taken them, actually, on her phone because Rosa had read once that tenants should document move-out conditions. She placed her phone, screen facing up, on the clerk's table. 31 photographs, time-stamped, dated the day of her departure. Victor Prawl stopped looking at his phone. The judge reviewed the photographs without expression. He reviewed the contractor estimates Prawl had submitted. He looked at one estimate in particular for a long moment, a flooring replacement quoted at $2,200, for flooring that Rosa's move-out photographs showed to be intact. He looked at another, for repainting, in a unit Rosa had documented as clean-walled and unmarked. He set the papers down, he took off his glasses, and then Victor Prawl, apparently mistaking the pause for an opening, leaned forward and said, "Your Honor, I don't know what kind of operation you're running here, but I've been waiting for 40 minutes and I have a meeting at 11, and honestly, this whole process has been a complete waste of my morning." The courtroom went silent, not the thoughtful silence that follows a difficult revelation, the stunned, crystalline, disbelieving silence of 80 people who have just watched a man speak to a judge the way someone speaks to a toll booth. Rosa Menendez looked at the table in front of her. The court reporter's fingers stopped moving. The bailiff near the door stood up straighter. Judge Caprio did not move. He did not blink with unusual frequency. He did not telegraph anything. He simply let the silence exist for a full 4 seconds, which in a quiet courtroom is a very long time. And then he said, with the patience of a man who has never once needed volume to be devastating, "Mr. Prawl, this courtroom has been running since before you arrived and will continue running long after you leave. Ms. Menendez took 2 buses to be here this morning. She ironed her blouse. She organized 3 years of receipts by hand. She is not wasting your morning. She is defending her life savings." Another pause. "You'll want to be quiet now." Nobody in that room moved. That's when everything changed. Not in the drama of the moment, but in what the judge did next. He asked the clerk to pull the property's rental licensing history. He asked Prawl, very politely, to explain why the building inspection from 14 months prior had flagged 2 items in Rosa's specific unit as landlord responsibility repairs. Prawl said he wasn't sure what inspection the judge was referring to. The clerk produced the inspection report. Prawl's attorney, who had been silent in the corner and was now visibly reconsidering his life choices, leaned in and whispered something. Prawl said the repairs had been scheduled. The judge asked when they had been completed. Prawl said he'd have to check. The judge noted, for the record, that they appeared in Rosa's move-out photographs as still unaddressed, meaning the damage Prawl was attributing to Rosa as tenant negligence was, in documented fact, pre-existing and landlord responsibility. Rosa Menendez sat very still. She was gripping the edge of the table with her arthritic hands, not from agitation, but from the effort of not crying in public, which she had promised herself she would not do. The monologue that followed was not loud. It was never loud. It was the judicial equivalent of a scalpel, precise, cold, and leaving nothing unexamined. "Mr. Prawl, you came into this courtroom this morning with contractor estimates for damage that your own city inspection had flagged as your responsibility before this tenant ever left. You've characterized an 11-year tenancy with a documented payment history as negligent. You have wasted this court's time, your own attorney's credibility, and, most importantly, you have caused a 67-year-old woman who has done nothing wrong to spend weeks in fear of losing money she cannot afford to lose." He looked at Prawl with the particular steadiness of a man who does not need your agreement to be correct. "You did not come here for justice, Mr. Prawl. You came here for a shortcut, and in my courtroom, those are not the same thing." Prawl's claim was dismissed in its entirety. The judge awarded Rosa her court filing fee and transportation costs. He referred the landlord's failure to address the cited inspection items to the city's housing authority for review, and he looked at Rosa Menendez, who was finally allowing herself one quiet tear at the corner of her right eye, and said simply, "You did everything right." She nodded once. She gathered her rubber-banded receipts back into her plastic shopping bag. She thanked the judge in the formal way people thank those who have given them something they were owed, but feared they would never receive. Victor Prawl was outside the building before she reached the hallway. His quarter zip was still expensive. His morning had not gone the way he planned. The housing authority review that followed uncovered 3 similar complaints from former tenants that had never been formally pursued. His rental license was placed under conditional review. 2 of those former tenants, when they heard what had happened in courtroom 4, called the housing authority themselves. One phone call changed by a courtroom nobody expected to matter. Rosa Menendez took the bus home. She called her daughter from the stop and said in Spanish that it was fine, that everything was fine, that the judge had been very good, that they didn't have to worry anymore. Her daughter cried. Rosa told her not to. Then Rosa cried a little too, quietly, alone at a bus stop with her plastic bag of receipts, because some relief is too large to hold completely still. If this story sat in your chest the way it sat in mine, if you felt the weight of those 2 buses and that ironed blouse and those rubber-banded receipts, comment below with the word ironed and tell me what it means to you when someone finally gets treated the way they deserve. Share this with someone who needs to believe the system can still see them. And subscribe, because every week this courtroom proves the same thing. The loudest person in the room is almost never the one who's right.